Hey guys, Strike here, coming at you with a video that this kind of video I haven't done before. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the top 16 Mezco 112 collective figures that I'd like to see. These are going to be DC themed, so DC Comics only. And I came up with 16 figures that I really want to see Mezco 112 do at some point in the future. I know that they've already got so many planned that are on their way out. Like we got a Catwoman and a Darkseid, and those characters are coming out eventually. But here are some that I haven't heard anything about that I would really like them to do. I've wrote out a list here, and I'm going to go over all of them. I actually have 14 written out, and then I was going to leave the last two to improv. Keep in mind that there is always a possibility that Mezco can come out with these figures, and this is not at all some sort of confirmation that they are. These are just figures that I personally would love to have from Mezco. Anyways, starting off with a classic version of Harley Quinn. We've got the Suicide Squad version, and I would love to see a classic Harley Quinn, or at least something more Arkham City or Telltale Batman style. Seeing as how many versions of Joker they're doing, it would make sense if they were to do more Harley Quinns to go along with him. The Suicide Squad Harley looks alright. I mean, I'm not against the figure, but I would prefer a classic version of Harley Quinn. Maybe sometime this year we'll get announcements on some of these figures to actually be true. But anyways, the accessories I thought Harley Quinn could come with are some interchangeable heads. Maybe either an expression one, we could have just like a plain smile one, and then maybe like either a big grin or an angry face, or an unmasked Harleen Quinzel style head would be neat too. Of course, she would have to have her mallet and her cork gun. And I was thinking Bud and Lou could be included too, but I feel like they'd be a little bit big to be included in there. And then, of course, she'd have like her hands and the Mezco stands and whatnot. Next up on the list is Green Lantern. I'd really like to see a really nice Green Lantern figure by Mezco. I feel like they'd probably be better off using the kind of material they used for the Dawn of Justice Superman for the suit to make it more Green Lantern-esque instead of with the fabric they used for the Flash. Whereas Harley Quinn should have that kind of fabric with the Flash so that she's extra posable. I feel like Green Lantern needs to have something that seems a little bit more like spacey, you know. And of course it would be I would assume that they would go with Hal Jordan. I would prefer a PX exclusives for John Stewart. But I feel like they could get away with just throwing in an interchangeable John Stewart head. Although again, I feel like making a John Stewart as a variant would be way better. And of course you could have him with like a angry face or whatever you want. Then he'd come with a lantern, some sort of construct, some sort of like Green Lantern weapons he can use in battle, and then his hands and all that. And next up on the list is Kid Flash. Now, of course, I'm a huge fan of Kid Flash. I know that we got a Wally West head with the Mezco Flash figure, but I think it would just be cool to get a Kid Flash to pose next to our Barry Allen figures as well. And of course, this could be an easy opportunity since many people like the white and the black versions of Wally West. You could just come with two different colors for the heads. I think that'd be really neat. So that way you can, have your preference as to which version of him that you would use. And of course, he would probably come with the standard Flash accessories like hands, the tornado hands that came with the Flash and Reverse Flash, and then maybe some of the Speed Force Lightning. Next up on our list is Black Canary. I would love to see a Black Canary figure with the same kind of like fishnets from the Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad. The accessories for her, I'm not exactly sure. You couldn't throw a motorcycle in there or anything, but you could have like the screaming head for when she's giving her canary cry, and then she would probably have a removable jacket of some sort. And, the hands and the stand and whatnot. There's probably some accessories that you could include with her, but those are just the ones that come off the top of my head. Next up is Robin. Now, which version of Robin this is, as long as it's not Damian Wayne, I would not complain. I would expect either Tim Drake or Dick Grayson. Maybe you could get away with doing a PX exclusive where one is Dick Grayson and the other one is Tim Drake. So that way you have two different Robins to choose from. But the accessories that I would give him are the bow staff, maybe some alternate heads in there, wingdings would be neat, and, a grapple gun, of course, and some other sort of bat gadget would be neat that he could have. Now, speaking of Dick Grayson, the next one that I would like to see is Nightwing. Classic style blue Nightwing would be awesome. Not like OG Nightwing. I'm talking like the more modern Nightwing, just as long as he doesn't have the New 52 red look to him, as I would be totally down for this figure. Of course, you could have, you know, some armor on that suit. Again, maybe styled like the Ascending Knight Batman would be really cool. So that he kind of fits in with that, you know, universe that they're creating. And of course, he'd have the eskrima sticks, the wingdings, a grapple gun, whatever he needs, because he's Nightwing. I think those would be the perfect accessories. Now, next up is Supergirl. I would love to see Supergirl. And again, this is a figure I'm not too sure what they could include with accessories, considering, like, Superman's already had the City of Kandor in his little accessory pack. So maybe Supergirl could just come with some similar accessories. I was thinking, you know, interchangeable head and hands, and then kryptonite. Now, if we're getting interchangeable heads with Supergirl, I think it would be a really good opportunity to not only get, like, maybe a heat vision head like they probably would normally do, but maybe a smiling head too. Because, you know, I don't want a stoic Supergirl all the time. You know, I expect her to be smiling in some way. So that would be really nice to have. And of course, you know, again, kryptonite, maybe some chains just like Supergirl. It just depends. Now, one that I thought up that I think would be really cool, but it's kind of out there. I'm not sure if Mezco would ever do this, but I really wish they would be Black Mask. I think Roman Sionis by Mezco would be really cool. Now, of course, he would have a lot of fun accessories like guns, pistols, assault rifles, whatever. And then he could have like maybe a cigar or something to hold to make him look like an old school gangster. I think that's the theme that I would really like to see. You could have interchangeable heads. We could have one where maybe he's screaming, because I feel like Black Mask has a lot of anger issues. Or we could even just get a Roman Sionis head so that we can, you know, have him before his accident that burns the mask into his face. And maybe one of his accessories could be like the mask before any of the accident the accident itself happens. But that would be really cool to see. I would love to have a Black Mask figure by Mezco. I think that'd be spectacular. Armored Lex Luthor is the next one. He is a figure that I'd really like to see. Now, some of you know that I actually have the DC Collectibles Icons Lex Luthor, and he's an okay figure, but I wanted something with a little more articulation. The articulation here isn't the best, and I'm kind of scared to pose these Icons figures around because of how fragile they've been. Any DC Icon or any DC Collectibles figure I've had in the past has been very fragile and has probably broken at some point, which is very annoying. But Armored Lex Luthor, of course, you could have, you know, an alternate head, either an angry head, or maybe some sort of helmet or whatever. Of course, he'd have to have some sort of kryptonite power cells for his suit, and then like the power blast that we're getting with Iron Man would probably be really good accessories. Brainiac is a figure that I really want. I don't want a classic style Brainiac, and that's kind of what I'm afraid that Mezco would do. I want a more modern Injustice 2 style Brainiac figure. I think he would just be awesome. He could have an alternate head and hands. I don't know what else he would come with, really. Because, I mean, Brainiac's ship has always been kind of just like a bunch of technology, and I feel like that might make for some boring, you know, accessories. Maybe more shrunken cities, but we could also have attachable tentacles to him, because Injustice 2 has Brainiac with these awesome tentacles. I think that'd be a really cool figure. Now, for my next figure, I chose a figure that I would have honestly thought Mezco would have done for their variant on their classic Superman figure, and that's Bizarro. I kind of want to know why they went with Red Sun Superman or whatever it is they did instead of Bizarro, because I think a Bizarro figure by Mezco would have been a much better choice. But I guess it saves them money on sculpts and whatnot. But of course, I would love to see Bizarro. You know, he could have some alternate heads and hands, and he could have the dog tag necklace that I've seen him pictured with before, and maybe some blue kryptonite instead of green kryptonite. I think would be a really cool accessory. My next few figures actually are just Batman villains that I haven't seen Mezco make, obviously, because they just haven't done it. But the first one is Scarecrow. I would love a really nice comic book style Scarecrow, but something that's really freaky. Of course, I want him to have an alternate head that's, you know, nightmare fuel, looking terrifying, like whoever's looking at him is on fear toxin and whatnot. Of course, he'd have to have some sort of fear gas tank that he could use. And then he could have some claws, kind of like we see in Batman Arkham Asylum. And then, of course, his massive scythe that he carries around in some versions of the character. Scarecrow is definitely one that I would love to have. Now, next up is one I think I'm honestly looking forward to most, probably up there with like a Supergirl or a Nightwing, Mr. Freeze. I think he would be a spectacular Mezco figure, especially if they made him kind of look like Iron Man, how the Iron Man figure is starting to look, but it could also totally be pulled off like a Batman the Animated Series type thing. All I know is that Mezco Mr. Freeze, no matter what he looks like, as long as he's got armor and stuff on, I think I would really like that. Now, for the alternate head, the only thing that I could think of, aside from an angrier face or facial expression, of course, he'd have to have some sort of a removable helmet. But not only do I think it'd be cool if he had a different facial expression, but if he also came with a secondary helmet that's maybe cracked and broken from Batman beating on him. I just think that'd be a spectacular accessory to have. And of course, he'd have to have his freeze gun. And then he could have the ballerina snow globe we saw in Batman the Animated Series. But another accessory I think it'd be really cool to come with is if he came with, maybe it would just be molded into a hand, but it'd be cool if he came with some sort of vial or something that would be like Nora's cure. I think that would be a spectacular accessory to have. Now, next up is just another gangster style figure, because I think having a figure like this would just be too cool, and that would be Two-Face. I would prefer the black and white suit Two-Face, but I feel like if Mezco is to do it, they probably will go with two different versions. They might do a more realistic version, and then they might do like a more classic traditional Two-Face figure. If we got a purple and orange suit Two-Face, it wouldn't be the worst, but I'd prefer just a standard black and white Two-Face. And of course, he could have an alternate head. Again, probably best if he's screaming or just angry, you know, aggressive. An alternate head for Two-Face is pretty much just self-explanatory. Give him a simple, regular face and then an angry face. And then, of course, I'd love to see him with Tommy gun and then two pistols and then molded into the hand, because if it was just an accessory, you would lose it. But, of course, he'd have to have coin hands. And then I think a trench coat for him would be really cool. I don't know if they would do a fedora molded into a head, but I would prefer it if they would just do, you know, not included if that's the way it's going to be, if it's not removable or anything. And those are all the ones that I actually have written out. As for other figures that I want to see, a Batgirl is definitely one of them. I want a classic style Batgirl, not like 60s classic Batgirl, but like traditional style Batgirl, not like the Burnside version. I would love to see Batgirl in the same style as the Batman that's coming out and whatnot. Barbara Gordon preferably. That's I mean, the mainstream Batgirl. Then I feel like they'd go for her before they went for anybody else. But yeah, Batgirl is a huge figure that I want to see. And for my last figure, I was not going to include this one originally because I have a feeling they're already going to make him at some point. But my next figure on the list was the Ezra Miller Flash from Justice League. I am honestly really not looking forward to getting the Mafex version of the Flash, only because I have one Mafex figure, and that's the Armored Batman from Dawn of Justice, and I'm just not crazy about it at all. I don't know if I want to have to settle for that, because that comes out in May, I believe. Comes out in May, and Mezco so far has only released pictures for Batman and Aquaman. So if they don't do a Wonder Woman, excuse me, they don't do a Wonder Woman, which would not surprise me, and it would honestly be preferred, then they can just skip to Cyborg and Flash. I feel like I'd rather have a Flash from them than Cyborg. And yeah, the Flash is just one that I want to see made by them, because I feel like if it's anything like the Superman from Dawn of Justice, it would be a really good figure. And I would really like to have that in my collection. Anyways, those are 16 Mezco 112 DC figures that I want to see made. I'm probably going to try to send this out to Mezco somehow to see if they agree, or if they even would listen to my idea. If you guys think that any of these figures should be made, it would be really helpful if you could tweet this video to their Twitter if they have one or whatever. And of course, as always, if you have an idea for a figure that you would like to see made from Mezco that's DC themed, leave it in the comment section below. If it's just an agreement with one of these figures on my list, or a figure that I missed out on, like Poison Ivy or someone that I just didn't name, and you think it'd be really cool to see, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. And I will see you all in the next video. Later, taters.